Thank you so much for joining me today. I am someone who has amazing people in my life, and I am so pleased that one of them is joining me. John Carmichael, President and CEO of Nestle Canada. So John, I am so excited that you're here with me today. Usually we interact in a different way. I'm your designer, you're my client, we're now friends.
This is fun.
It's fun.
Absolutely.
Well, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I want to do today is I want to talk to you about what I don't know about you. Like, what has been your journey? Because we rarely ever talk about business. And we rarely ever talk about business. Or like your background, how you ended up being president at Nestle, right?
Sure.
So to do that, I'm going to go backwards though.
Okay.
Okay, so first question for you. First of all, I've heard that who we are as an adult was informed by who we were in middle school. Don't know if that's true. Take it in.
Middle school.
In middle school. So indulge me for a bit. Tell me who you were, what you were like in middle school. What did your friends and family, how would they have described you? Who were you at that time?
Oh man, who's anybody in middle school, right? It's sort of that battle between acne and braces, I suppose, is probably maybe the best description. I don't know. I kind of feel like that adolescent period is the battle between, or maybe the learning of how to fit in.
For sure.
And how to stand out, right? Mm-hmm. And so that it's finding your place in the world at that time. So that's probably where I was. I got into music in sixth grade probably. I played the French horn.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
who knew?
Probably made me even more awkward. But somebody came and played it in like my second grade class, and I thought that is the neatest instrument with the greatest sound I've ever seen. And so I always wanted to play it. And I think in sixth grade I picked it up and I started playing it. And relative to the other sixth, seventh, and eighth graders, I was pretty good. I got an award for it, and it was neat. And I think
all these other talents I knew nothing about.
I probably will never play the French horn for you. Just let's set expectations now. But I think the good thing about that age group, if you can find some way to channel your energies, your anxieties, I think it helps you get through it. It helps you fit in because you have a place, and it helps you stand out because I got this unique, crazy instrument sitting on my lap. So it probably was pretty effective at least getting through what is this incredibly awkward time in life. So
in alignment with that, so now you're playing the French horn, and you're just a phenomenal musician, I know. So tell me though, what else people would have said about you? Like, John is this person, John does this, John, what would have been your characteristics?
I think you'd probably have to go to high school for that. I think.
Well, talk to me about high school then.
Yeah, because I think I was still figuring myself out between sixth and eighth grade, and frankly, I still am from all is said and done. But I think in high school, you come out a little more fully formed. Maybe a bit of a psychological trajectory of sorts. And I was probably a budding little leader, right? I was president of this and president of that and president of the school and heavily involved in that kind of thing, very social. I would have described myself as extroverted then. I wouldn't now, interestingly, but I would then. I ran cross country and track.
Multifaceted individual.
Yeah, I would say it differently. I would say the Carmichael gene pool is not gifted with great coordination.
What?
And cross country and track, you just got to run fast, right? So those worked well for me.
Okay, and then during that time, either middle school or high school, what did you dream of at that time? Like, where did you want to go?
I was probably, it's interesting. I was probably more concerned about sort of what I was going to become, which maybe is normal then, I don't know, but in that stage of life. But I probably wanted to go into politics.
So when you used the word, what I wanted to become, what did that look like for you? And I'm going to come back to politics.
That's a tricky subject now. I don't know. I'm not sure how to answer that. I would say some degree of achievement was important to me at that time.
Okay.
I also, though, I felt like I did feel like I could make a difference. At a young age, I did feel I had some leadership skills, or for one reason or another, people would follow me, whether that was good or bad, depended. But and I felt like I could make a difference. I think, I don't know that makes anyone stand out at that age. You're more optimistic in the world. You're exposed to the issues and opportunities that are out there, and that was a path that I just really felt like I could make a difference.
Yeah, and in listening to that and you referencing being in politics, like for the most part, that's why people get into politics, right?
I would agree.
So it would make perfect sense to me that those two things would align.
Yeah, no, I think so.
Yeah. Okay, so then before we go on to what happened to you along the way, it's like, what brought you joy during those times?
I've always been a pretty social guy. I have a tremendous group of high school friends to this day that I keep in touch with, that we try to get together
Nice.
a couple times a year. We don't always pull it off, but we try. We're on the phones with each other. That still remains a very special group of friends of mine. And if I were to pick one thing that gave me joy, it was that.
Wow. I am somebody who loves and honors human connection. And I know that in doing that, you have to be intentional, right? So for
Sure.
you to maintain those relationships, that is strategic, right? So is it something that you just decided, like maybe in college or high school, we're going to do this. We're going to get together every year for a couple times a year? Or was that something that just came about organically?
I don't know whose crazy idea it was to begin with, to be honest with you. But I think we all value each other's relationships. So I don't know that it was me. I've hosted a few times, so I've had the opportunity to live in different places because of my work experience, and that gave us the opportunity to go explore those places as a group. And every time I, of course, go back, my dad still lives in the same area. I'll go see them. But I don't know who initiated it, but I'd say it's important and intentional probably for all of us. Social media helps. I know it gets vilified, and I understand that side of it as well, but I think especially for somebody who has moved as much as I have, it does enable me to at least feel like I am connected in a way, and watching people and celebrating their events with them. And so when we get back together, of course, great relationships, you pick up right where you left off, but I do feel I've participated in their life in the interim, which has been really helpful, especially living overseas when you just don't get the opportunity to drop in.
Right. I love that. Okay, so now here you are in high school wanting to be a politician. That's where you were. Now you're today president of Nestle. Fill in the gaps for me. Talk to me about what? Talk to me about that
What went
journey.
wrong?
Right. But no, talk to me about the journey, and also what you would say are like maybe 2 or 3 pivotal moments that happened to you that just changed the trajectory for you.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think pivotal moments, at least for me, but I would imagine for most people, are when your environment changed dramatically and you had to adapt, right? And grow in some way. And so if I think about that, it would probably be mostly moves. Actually, what I'd say, the first one is probably my parents getting divorced, right? I mean, that's a big environmental change. Obviously, it was the right thing for the two of them.
And did that happen, did that happen to you when you were still in school?
Probably in middle school.
In middle school.
That's exactly when it happened.
Talk to me about how that impacted you.
In retrospect, possibly not at the time, but in retrospect, it was great for everyone. It was great for my mom and dad. I think my dad at that time in his life was very, very specific on what he wanted me to become, and it wasn't probably what I wanted to become. I was a bit of a family rebel in that regard. And a little bit more freedom did enable me probably to explore a lot more things. The good thing about it is probably the greatest supporter of me doing whatever I want to do is now my dad, right? So we've come full circle on that. But I think that did enable me to explore me a little more, try different things. My dad was an All-American football player.
Ah.
I was a 6'1" string beans skinny kid, right? So there probably was not going to be a successful path in life, but it probably was going to be the path in life in that scenario. So I would say that's the first.
I actually want to go back even further than that.
Uh-oh.
No, what I love about what you're sharing in your story, because it is personal, is that there is life for adolescents after divorce, right? Because we know that, how it impacts both of the adults in the situation and also the children. But I love this part of the story where, and I know that you are very close to both of your parents. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that there is a beautiful life even after that separation.
Sure. You know what's interesting is I would have told you at the time that it was really rare. Mm-hmm. And I think statistically it was. I had an offsite with my leadership team last week, and we went around and we're just kind of a self-discovery time, and tell us a little bit about some of the trials and tribulations of your youth, possibly not unlike this. And I would say 3/4 of that team were products of divorce. They have divorced parents. And each one of them said, and I was the only one, right? I was the only one, and so we were embarrassed and this, that, and the other, because it was not as acceptable then as it is now. But
so when you say they were the only ones, you mean they were the only ones amidst their friend group?
In their peer group, they felt that they were the only ones.
Gotcha.
And look, so this is an incredibly high-achieving, high-developed group of individuals, and 3/4 of them went through this. So I think it's more just, and there's a life afterwards, I think was the word you used.
Yes.
I think it's also, these journeys that we go through, these trials that we have to overcome can make us better people. And I think that's true of that period of my life. Mm-hmm. I might not have said it at the time.
No, I love this, because what you're striking in my mind is that this builds resilience.
Yes, great word.
Right? You have to bounce back.
Great word. And what's more important right now than resilience, huh? Mm-hmm.
So you were starting to tell me about pet food at Nestle.
That's a whole different conversation.
That's a whole different conversation. But tell me how you ended up at Nestle.
So I started a company with some friends in college, last few years of college, and then the first 3 years out. And one of my very best friends still runs that company, right? Still, and does an incredible job with it. We were winging it.
What kind of company?
It was property maintenance, leasing, and management.
Very similar to, I don't know, working for
Pet
a chocolate company.
Yeah.
Or not at all.
Yeah. No, it was something that, they were building all these little corner shopping centers in LA all over the place, which is where we were, and they were investors doing it who didn't know how to manage what they just built. And we had an older friend, an older fraternity brother actually, that was in that business and said, hey, we could go into business just helping these people run their properties. And they were popping up all over, so it worked out really well. But we were winging it, no doubt. And so I went back to business school, originally with the idea of, let's try and figure out how to do this right, or at least better. And then during business school, that opened up sort of a world of opportunities. Business school is very theoretical. Mm-hmm. I thought I better go work with one of these big companies to maybe do more of an apprenticeship kind of a thing to really figure out how to do it better. Still thinking I'd go back. And I ended up with Nestle because I thought it was the best big company for me because there was a freedom to thrive as my own self. I felt the other companies, you needed to become something that they wanted you to become. Nestle had more freedom of personal choice on that.
How did you know that? How did you know that this company was a company that would allow you to be free and authentic?
The first company I interviewed with told me they were going to teach me how to write a memo.
Oh,
and I'm like,
fascinating.
I think I've got that covered. And it's a big company, it's a famous company, I won't bring it out, but there is a way to do everything. And the way that you excel is to do that thing better than others, versus figure out possibly how to do something more incremental or more innovative or make a step change. Mm-hmm. And that to some degree or another most fell on that spectrum, and I found Nestle just to be a little bit more interested in what we would have defined as diversity back then, very different than how we might define it today, but diversity of style. And I was still kind of a rebel at the time, so I wouldn't have thrived in an environment where I needed to behave and dress and act a certain way.
Yeah. I love that too, because I think that reinforces the idea that we have to trust our gut, right?
Very
like
much.
You have all these options ahead of you,
Very much.
and then something's just saying to you, you know what? I think I can be my authentic self with that company,
Yeah, that's interesting.
right?
If we go back, it's probably, when you look at the mistakes you made, there was probably something saying, nagging, maybe saying, maybe do something different.
Do something different.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the something different. So you were telling me about pet food and these pivotal moments in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think I encourage everybody to move up once. I've moved 15 times with Nestle.
Okay, that's 14 extra.
I don't recommend everybody do that unless you want.
Okay.
But I think everybody should move once. Everybody should be outside their comfort zone and go through the process of making new friends from scratch. It's a challenge. It can be a lonely time. It's a self-discovery moment, and I think those are really important in life, to trigger self-discovery moments, because we change. We're dynamic people.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, it's a confidence building moment. I mean, I do a big backpacking trip every year with good friends, and 2 of them are friends I made in St. Louis. So I call my friends my breadcrumbs that I've sort of made through my journey. But I think it gives you confidence. It teaches you.
Where does that confidence come from? Like, what are you doing to build that confidence?
Well, even in a relocation in your own country, you've got to build a new life. And the success of having done that, and that's as easy as figuring out your shopping habits, and as tough as figuring out how to get a group of friends that are going to be around when you need them.
Yeah.
The success of setting that up is a big builder of confidence in sort of who you are, and you got it. Well, I'd go back to your word resiliency. You prove yourself you can do it once, you can do it anytime, anywhere. It also enables you, let's say I ended up moving back to LA after St. Louis, and I had these wonderful layers of friendships and teams, but it enables you to step outside that and say, I'm gonna add some more to my life, maybe friendships based upon affinities, things you like to do as you continue to grow, new types of people, more diversity in your life and the people you hang out with. It sets you on a trajectory and a resiliency that you can continue to do that.
Yeah, and it also helps too to kind of minimize the fear, right? Knowing I've done this 14 times already. Let's just do it again, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I got this.
I got this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do it again. So any other milestones or pivotal moments?
I'd say the other one was I moved to Switzerland. I moved outside the country, and that is just taking the same experience that I just described and multiplying it by a much larger. There's language differences and culture differences, and I'm adventure is probably my theme song if I was going to have one, and so I thrive on that myself. But I think as far as developing confidence and resilience, that you can pretty much handle anything, an international move you come back a changed human. There's no doubt about it.
No doubt. Okay, so I feel like we're talking about all of the successes along the way, right? So tell me, was there ever a moment where you felt like, okay, I'm about to be derailed, or maybe you were derailed, and how did you get back on track again?
Yeah, I'm an optimist by nature.
Yes, you are.
I'm sure you've taken all those personality tests, whether it's Myers-Briggs or DISCs, and that's one thing that always comes through. And when I'm asked this at work, I often use my backpacking analogy. That when you're in a backpacking trip, generally speaking, at least once you have to climb up over a mountain pass into another valley, and it's tough. You got 50 pounds on your back, and you're trudging away, and sometimes it's hot and sunny and difficult, and then you get to the top, and you look back, and it's the most rewarding moment of the backpacking trip as well. 2 days later, you remember nothing of the climb. Nothing of the climb. All you remember is the view. At least that's all I do. And so I almost have to force myself to go back and think through the climb, because I think my brain naturally stores those away in a file somewhere. But I'd say any victory has come with its failure. I think I would go back to those same two stories and say there were some incredibly lonely periods. I would say in St. Louis specifically, that was probably the most difficult, lonely period of my life because I was there by myself. And St. Louis is a town that doesn't have a big transient economy. It doesn't bring a lot of people in.
Right.
So most people you meet
have already their built relationships, right?
Yeah, I would describe it. People's dance cards are full. They're nice people. They just have full dance cards. And so there were some really lonely times, and I did second guess myself a lot. So it's with hindsight that I tell you that it builds resilience and it makes you different. And I'm glad I did it, but it was very difficult at the time. Same with Switzerland.
How did you dig yourself out, or did you just move again?
You know, I developed a theory of what it's going to take to get through this. And you're going to laugh, but I use some of them to this day. One of which is you need 5 friends. And couples only count as one.
Okay, I'm
5.
That's 5 friends.
6,
okay,
7,
not
and 8.
4, not 6.
Write that down.
Write
6, 7, and 8 are luxury, but you need 5 friends because people travel, people do things, people have lives on their own, and it takes 5 to make sure that you 5 people is the difference from being alone versus lonely. Is maybe the way to say it.
Okay, now for clarification, are the 5 friends where you are?
Yes.
They're where you are.
There you are. What do
so
you do
the
this
friends
weekend?
from high school, when you're in St. Louis, you're like, okay, I've got those friends over there, but they don't count as my 5. You've got to have 5 where you are.
In this case, you got to have 5 where you are. Don't say no. Especially, I bet you're a bit introverted. I bet, aren't you? You're an introvert.
I kind of go back and forth.
Same, so do I. But you're never going to meet those 5. They're not going to be the first people you meet. And so if somebody invites you to go do something, never say no, because you're going to meet one of the 5, 3 iterations after that.
Okay, gotcha.
So got to have 5. Never say no. Self-discovery.
Okay.
You know, time alone can be scary, or it can be a time to kind of help figure out who you are. And I think you always got to be on that self-discovery bandwagon. And in times when I've moved that I've been alone, I think that's the times that I probably thought about, concentrated on who I was, what made me tick.
So I love this. So let's talk about this self-discovery, because this is kind of like a theme for this conversation. What would you say was maybe the 1 or 2 most important things that you discovered about yourself during these times?
I'll give you one that I thought that was really clicked over for me. We tend to spend, as a culture, maybe as just humans, we tend to spend time when we talk about self-improvement looking at our weaknesses. Right?
We do.
Think about a business review you do. You go to your boss and your boss says, these are the 3 things I'd like you to work on. They're usually their weaknesses. But improving your weaknesses can only prevent failure. The things that make you succeed are your strengths. But we don't tend to focus on that. And that I made that shift at some point. Actually, there was a book I read called Now Discover Your Strengths, done by the Gallup organization. 25 years ago, I think.
Here's what's interesting. We use their tool, Gallup Strength Finders,
Finder.
whenever I'm making a hire. It's the 34 strengths.
Yep. I just took my leadership team to it last week.
All right.
But it's that flip as you self-analyze, because we're even worse on ourselves, right? I mean, you know, we can give everybody else the benefit
especially
of the doubt.
high achievers, right?
Maybe so.
Yeah.
But I think humans in general, right? I mean, we tend to focus on our flaws versus focus on our success. You flip that equation around, and it's a game changer in how you view yourself, how you interact with the world around you. And so I would say that's probably been the biggest thing. I'm not sure that's where you're going with the weaknesses, but
I wanted to know, yeah.
I think as far as seminal moments, that flip to I'm going to succeed by my strengths, and I'm going to help others succeed by helping them discover their strengths, has probably been one of the more important flips for me, personally and professionally.
Yeah, and I think what I know about you, what I think I understand, is that your teams adore you, and I think that's because you want to see them succeed, and so you do focus on their strengths. Is that so, or what approach do you take toward
I
your
don't know
teams?
that would be the word they would use, but
listen, I mean, you've got, I mean, when I think about this, you've got like 4,000, almost 4,000 people under your purview right now, right? Like, how do you get those people to follow you?
I think everybody is looking at what's in it for them, and I think if they believe, to your point, that you are truly in it to make them the best them that they can be, I think that's a big deal. That's probably part of it. I think they need to believe in your vision and where you're headed, and they need to respect you and the how that you're going to get there. That's right off the top of my head, not scientific by any stretch, but
it's worked for you, so stick with it.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I've been fortunate enough that I have always had fantastic teams. So I've been lucky in that regard too, I would say.
Is it luck or is it by design? Are you
both.
hand-picking? I would imagine you have to hand-pick some of these people, right?
Sometimes you parachute into an existing team. Sometimes you get to hand-pick. I think the most important thing you do as a leader is especially pick your executive team and get them to be a cohesive group that can work together in a high-trust environment. So there's probably some orchestration to it as well.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Lorna Gross Enchanted Life and Style. And if you want to learn a little bit more about my interior design work, my travel experiences, my book, or speaking engagements, you can go to lornagross.com or connect with me on Instagram at Lorna Gross Designs. Okay, so then let's shift. Talked about your journey. Let's talk about lifestyle.
Okay.
All right. So, and I'm thinking you're going to come back to something that we discussed earlier. But listen, I have to tell you this, which you don't probably know. When I became your immediate fan was when I heard that you rode your bike to work every day. I was like, he rides his bike to work. Let's go, John Carmichael. So what that said to me is like, you know what? You don't wear your position on your chest every day. And you're just like out there being your authentic self. So tell me about that. Like, have you had to struggle to maintain that authenticity? I heard you say earlier that you chose this company because either subliminally or not, they let you be your authentic self. So tell me about that, and does that factor into your philosophy of life?
Yeah, you know, to tell you the truth, Lauren, I've never really thought about that before. Maybe a way to think about it is there's the person and there's the position. I would say I'm more comfortable with the person sometimes than I am with the position. So I've had to work harder because sometimes the position does require something of me that isn't naturally there. That's a tougher thing for me, I think, than how I show up as a person. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense.
Yeah.
It totally makes sense. And sometimes you have to switch.
Yeah, sometimes you need to be more formal,
And
as an
shift.
example, which
Yeah.
is not my chosen, probably first way to go in order to project confidence and credibility to a financial audience or even sometimes your own team. And so that to me is a little bit, I'm not going to say the costume, but that is a little bit the uniform you put on to make the position more successful.
Absolutely.
And
And
so-
what's interesting to me now is that, you know, it permeates different aspects of different people's lives. In the African American community, we call it code switching.
You betcha. Exactly.
Right? So
Yep.
you're shifting based on the environment that you're
Yep.
in at that moment.
Yep. Yep. No, I think that's a very good example.
Okay, so back to style. So now you have all these folks who, like I said, are under your purview. And then you're working for this company that has this wide breadth of brands, right? Like everybody thinks of Nestle as chocolate, but there's pet food, there's ice cream, there's coffee, there's drinks, there's, you know, savory foods, and there's Nespresso, you know, so all of this is under your purview. And I'm curious about how you balance that. Like, I can imagine that there's so much overstimulation in your brain sometimes that could potentially happen, but how do you wind up being able to reset and balance that? Like, how do you bring bliss into your life intentionally?
Let me answer the question I think you're asking, and you tell me whether I got it right. But
There is no right answer.
yeah, I mean, one of the unique things about our particular company is that it's very decentralized. So I actually, some of those things don't even report into me. And so, it's built, and the culture of it is more decentralized and empowering. And so for me, a lot of it is getting the right team and then coaching them to be as great as they can be, right? And in some instances, I might have some specific experience that might help with something, but generally speaking, it's making the team function and work really well and letting the team do their job well. And so that keeps me from the overstimulus that you're talking about. Now, I don't know if that's the question or if the question is, how do you get away from it all and what do you do?
Let's talk after hours.
Yeah, okay, that's where I thought you might be going.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's after whatever, 5:30. It's weekend. It's like, what are you doing?
Well, you said it once before. I'm an outdoor guy. I'm an exercise guy. I like nothing more to get on a bike and just start cycling.
Okay, where are you going? You're riding through the city? You're going out to the country? What are we doing on this bike?
It's as much about the adventure for me as it is about the exercise. So I love to go someplace different every time. I love to check out a new town. I love to check out a new part of the city or part of the countryside. I love rail trails. So, they're all over the country. They're fantastic, and you don't have to deal with streets and cars. And usually they go through an interesting place because the interesting places were built along the railroads.
Right.
And so that's probably my favorite thing to do. And then collectively, socially, I love to go check out a new restaurant. I love to go check out a new bar, new restaurant, new place with friends. And again, it's about the adventure as much as anything else.
But it's also about the gathering, right? Like I love just the moment of just gathering with great friends over a great meal.
Absolutely.
Conversation, right?
Yeah.
So on that note,
Yep.
I have had the privilege of attending your Canadian Thanksgiving.
Yes, you have.
Woo-hoo. So tell me about that concept. Like where did it emanate from? Like what's the Canadian Thanksgiving about?
I think it emanated originally from the fact that usually I was in a place that I didn't have family around. And so I was conscious of the fact that there were folks around that didn't have a gathering spot. It's probably where it started. Where it continued was this time of Thanksgiving is actually a pretty stressful time for most people. Like U.S. Thanksgiving. There's the family dynamics, you got to whip up this giant meal at scale.
And we should clarify that Canadian Thanksgiving does not happen in November.
No, they did it better than we did it. It's in October. It's the
easy
best.
breezy.
So we said, let's do something when nobody has the stress of Thanksgiving. We can have that kind of a gathering. It's not family-based. It's friend-based, based upon the people that are local and in the area. And so it's a group and a gathering of folks, and usually there's a waiting list, right? People hear about it. We only have so much capacity, but everybody's up for that kind of a special moment when they don't have to deal with the stresses of the real one. And October's a great time to throw a party.
Yeah, I love it because first of all, I just love to entertain, but one of the things I do love is that you bring people from all different backgrounds and different aspects of life. And when I've attended, we've got to learn from people, and somehow or other, the weather is always good.
Yes.
No,
that's part of it.
Yeah. Okay. You just channel Mother Nature. I know, but the weather's great, and also you have everybody bring a dish.
Yep.
Which I think is really cool. Like it's nice on the part of the host, right, to not have to do everything, but also people get to bring maybe aspects of their culture and things like that.
Yeah. It's an immediate, when people don't know each other really well, it's an immediate conversation starter.
Yeah.
Everybody's got something to talk to. Either you can ask a question, or you can say, hey, have you tried this? It's got this special spice from something that's important to me. So it does, and it makes it a patchwork of interesting things from all over the place. So it just makes it a much more interesting event, I think.
The other thing that's cool too for me is it's kind of like that bookend to warm weather, because it's outside in the evening, but it's October. So I mean, you might have to wear a jacket, but this for the most part is kind of like, okay, this is it. This is the finale of warm weather. Then we're going to transition over to being indoors.
That's fair.
So it's an awesome event. From my
October is the
perspective.
greatest month everywhere in the world.
Yeah?
Yeah, everywhere you go, October is
I'm feeling
just
like that's your
great.
favorite month.
It is
here.
one of my favorite
It
months.
is?
And this
Okay.
is a self-discovery moment. We're putting together.
Oh, another one.
Never really
right
thought
here.
about that before, but yeah, October's always great, right? You know, spring's great too. The shoulder seasons are always great. It's not too hot, not too cold, but you know, spring's kind of mud season too, right?
I'm a spring baby, honey. You can't criticize spring. I'm all about spring. New birth, new birth.
All right, I'll reframe it.
Reconsider. Okay, so tell me on this idea of balance and resetting and creating bliss, like what would you say are your like 2 or 3 splurge items that you're like, oh man, I love that?
Yeah, splurge. Okay, so I might think of splurge a little differently.
Okay.
One, first top of the list, travel.
Okay.
Right.
Where are we going? Where are we going?
I got a list.
Okay. Top of the list is.
Right now, it would be Israel. Never been, culturally fascinating, so many things coming together. That would be on the list.
Okay.
I lived in Europe for 3 years, so I have checked a lot of boxes.
Okay.
But I just got back from, I work in Switzerland a lot, and I try and grab something on the way there and the way back.
Okay.
I did Malta on the way there and London on the way back.
Nice.
But to me, that's an indulgence. That's an investment. I try to go to places that are going to expand my mind a little bit, maybe a different language or a different culture.
Since you're so well traveled, John, what would you say is your all-time favorite place that you've been?
Oh my gosh. I don't know that I could answer that question.
Pick one.
You know, the reason why it's difficult to answer is it's so much about what happened, who I'm with.
I get that.
A great experience that took place that may not necessarily have to do with the city. So I don't know that it would be fair to the cities to judge them based upon the experience I had in them. But to me in Europe, you got London, Rome, and Paris. Those are sort of tier one. That's what I always tell people. Is like that's where you got to go first. I mean, so much of the culture emanated from one of those 3 places.
Here's what's interesting to me about this answer. Knowing that you're an adventurous person,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily marry that with these 3 cities, right? So when you go there, is it then about the other love, which is great food
I don't go
and
back.
restaurants?
I don't repeat.
I don't repeat.
Yeah.
I do it one time, that's it, Lorna, that's it.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah. No, but I don't. Yeah. So they were new to me when I went. But I think those 3 help you to understand the rest. It gives you some context, maybe a different way to say it, for the rest of Europe. Now, a lot of Europe would be offended by me picking those particular 3 and would find their culture not represented in that case. But so much of it came from those 3 that I think it helps. And you can get lost in those cities, and you can find what's particular to you in there, right? I mean,
Right.
you're going to find something in one of those 3 cities different than what I'm going to find. If you go to Prague, which is beautiful and incredible, it's about Prague. But we're likely to have a very similar experience. Maybe even have gone to the same restaurants.
I'll probably be eating with you and then like getting into the architecture. That's probably where I'd be.
Probably so.
Yeah.
Yeah. But after work,
Yes.
if I'm gonna indulge, it's a pint of Haagen-Dazs.
It's what?
It's a pint of Haagen-Dazs.
A pint of Haagen-Dazs. It's the little things, isn't
Oh.
it sometimes?
Yeah. And sometimes it is the whole pint.
What flavor?
Peanut butter and chocolate.
Peanut butter and chocolate. Wouldn't
Yeah.
have guessed that.
Yeah. Pralines and cream, close number 2.
Okay, now it's pralines. I'm a Louisiana girl. All
Fair
right.
enough.
Okay,
I will
let's
take
get this-
instruction from you on
okay.
that.
All right. So here's what I'm surprised you didn't say, and maybe you can clarify for me, because I know that you're like all into wine. So tell me,
Yeah.
is that for you just now kind of, I just do this every day, it's same old, it's nothing exceptional about it, or tell me.
I love wine. I love, again, the adventure of discovering new kinds of things, especially in red, which is my passion. But yeah, I think I don't sit down with a tub of Haagen-Dazs very often. When I hear indulgence moment for me, maybe crazy work day, and I think balance was the other word you used.
Okay, are you in the corner like this?
Maybe.
Or are you?
Maybe. maybe. I'm not going to say that the fetal position was never had.
It's like that guilty pleasure.
Yeah. Well, only when you eat the whole thing. Hey, a third of a deal. There's nothing embarrassing about that.
Hey, man, dive in. All right. I feel like I could talk to you forever, and I know that I can, but we're on limited time. So as we kind of wrap up here, tell me what you think are the 2 to 3 key things that can lead a person to an enchanted life.
I love that name, by the way.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. I do. I've never thought of my life as enchanted. It's now my ambition to get there. I had an epiphany one day, and it has become a little bit more of my philosophy these days. I have a place in Georgetown, as you well know, because you helped make it as terrific as it is. And I find that to be one of the most enchanting neighborhoods in the country. And I'm a history guy, so obviously I'm going to fall in it, but it fascinates me. And I was walking that neighborhood with a friend that I sometimes walk that neighborhood with, a neighbor, and he was pointing out everything that was wrong.
In the neighborhood?
In the neighborhood. That's broken, and this is off, and that's age, and that needs painting, and this wall isn't right, and blah, 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 as we go through. And true. But I was fascinated by it because I walk through that neighborhood and I see the history, not the age. I see what must have gone on in that house, and look at that terrific architecture, and imagine if we were 100 or 200 years ago. And I thought there's an interesting bigger philosophy there, because I think you find what you seek. And it is a complicated time, and there is tragedy, and there is war, and there are economic difficulties, and it's not that we want to be Pollyanna to those things, and it's not that we shouldn't go after those and really work hard to fix and make the world a better place, but there is also courage and joy and examples of greatness and hope and all these other things, and I feel like you find what you seek, and if you're seeking the problems, there's plenty. And that will be the life you have, and that'll be your outlook and maybe drive cynicism and other things. But if you're looking for the good, it's there too. But you need to be focused on it. That came to me on this walk last year, actually, and that has become really important to me. Seek the good, fix the bad, but seek the good. I think that's
love that.
That's an important one. The other one, I would say, this life journey thing, we are focused on the end result, the outcome, the wherever we're going to land. I think we're just taught to do that. I think if you want an enchanted life, you got to enjoy the way. You got to enjoy the journey along the way, and that's in 2 places. One is the actual journeys through life and the craziness of maybe an airport or the things that go wrong in a workday. But it's also the journey of self-discovery. I'm a big fan of, we are a dynamic, developing being. We are not the same person we were yesterday, and certainly not in 8th grade. And if you're constantly on that journey and constantly learning and being curious and growing, you can curate the life that's best with you the more you understand yourself. And everybody's enchanted life is different. Everyone's a snowflake. And the more you know about yourself, the more you can curate your life that is more than likely to be enchanted.
I agree. And I love that because it's a segue to the wrap, which is that everyone can have an enchanted life, right? And that life is the fairy tale you make it. So we then should all be about the business of creating our own enchanted life and style.
I love it.
Thank you so much, John. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Such
it was
a
fun.
pleasure.